Hi, welcome to the Interverse of Business and Life podcast. I'm Barb Patterson. Today, I'm joined by coach and educator Davida Arnold. In this conversation, Davida shares what she's discovered about the inside out nature of life and the liberating realization that you're okay no matter what's happening around you. One of the simple yet profound questions she asks herself is, do you know where your feelings are coming from? That question, as you're going to hear, has helped her see that her well being is not at the mercy of the circumstances, but comes from within. Through her experiences as a parent, teacher, and coach, Davida shows how trusting life allows more grace, connection, and freedom in everyday moments. I think you're going to find this conversation both grounding and inspiring. So let's dive in. Davida, welcome. I am so glad you're here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hi, Barb. Thank you so much for having me. I am so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, I really I'm grateful for your time today, and we're going to learn more about you and what you do. But as somebody in the education field and having family members who are teachers and a sister, is I always just appreciate that environment, all because of the amazing humans that you are, but also it's so layered. I get to hear the inside stories. There's the kids, and then there's the parents, and then there's the administration, and just all of it. And I think it's fascinating to really hear how your work in the world has continued to evolve you and the personal insights and shifts that have been valuable to you as a teacher. And I know everyone, regardless of their role, will benefit from, what you're going to share with us today. But I'd love to start with, when did you first begin to recognize that what was happening in our inner world was shaping your experience in the outer world?
Yeah. Okay, so great question. I think that I have always had, or at least since I was younger, a willingness to explore the inside. I remember when I was in college and struggling, and so my mom made me see a counselor for a minute, just kind of like threw me in for like a session, and it was pretty cool to talk. And so, I mean, I haven't been opposed to it, and so I think I've just always been, I guess, aware that of the importance of our thoughts. And then I would say it really hit home around 2000, in the early 2000s. My first career was in engineering and then realized I wanted to switch to a helping profession. So I got a master's in pastoral counseling. And so in doing that, I had to get my own counseling as well. And so just, again, just being open to the exploration of the inside. And then that led me to coaching, which led me to discovering about the inside out nature of life. And I relate to it through the three principles. And so I definitely related counseling wise to cognitive behavioral. I just clicked with it, yes, and looking at our thoughts. But then when I discovered the principles, I just kind of like took it up a notch for me. I mean, it wasn't like automatic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was like, at first, it was like, oh, okay, I already know what this is. I'm
Yeah.
already doing it. I'm already talking to my clients about their thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, just that willingness to explore more. And I'm so thankful for that. So I just started reading and listening more and getting my own coaching with a principles based coach. And then it was like one day it just I just started noticing seeing things more and more, like bubbles being popped.
Yeah. Yeah, and for those listening that may not be aware, just to say the principles are what you're referring to, the teachings of Sydney Banks,
Yeah.
and really that the role of thought and consciousness and this sort of universal mind and how they all come together to create our experience of life. And so I'm curious, when you say it began to pop, can you share a story, or what was it you saw specifically that helped you?
Yeah. Okay. So I remember, like I said, just, trying to read and learn and just study more. And then one morning at the time I was working, I was had already started working in education as well as coaching, and but I was working part time, and I was home with my kids. My husband, as you said, most of my family are educators. My husband is educator, and so we were living on campus of the school that he was working at. And we have 4 kids, and they all attend the same school as my husband works at. So one morning he left with our oldest daughter to go to school, and so I was home alone with the youngest 3 to get them ready for school. I went to the rooms, got them up and everything, and then when it was time to go, it's like we're supposed to be walking out the door like 7 o'clock, 7:15. I go in my son's room and he is still in bed. And he's like, I think second grade. So this was not my proudest mommy moment at all, but I did not handle it well. I'll just say it like that. So we're walking to school, and you can imagine what that walk is like, me having, unleashed on him and with his sisters, and it was just not fun. And so I dropped them off at school, and I'm walking home by myself. I'm tearful at this point. I'm crying, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. And but I was able to settle down enough to hear this in my spirit. And I remember we're talking about 10, almost 10 years ago, and I heard it as clear as day in my spirit say, Davida, your son could have gone to school having behaved the exact same way and have experienced his mother's love instead of his mother's wrath. And that was major for me, because what I got from that was how I was feeling was not coming from his behavior or how he behaved. It was all coming from the way that I was looking at it, my perspective, and all the meaning that I was making of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a real story, and I know so relatable. And yeah, and you're pointing to something I think really profound. And when we start to recognize it, it really is a game changer because, when we understand that what's happening outside of us is one thing, and then what's happening inside of us is another. And often it looks like I'm at the effect of my son's behavior or my teacher or my boss or my business. It looks like we're at the effect of it. But really, if people slow down to what you're pointing to right now, I think it's amazing how liberating it can be because that external thing does not determine what's happening inside. What's happening inside is, again, standalone. It can be anything. And we've all had an experience. I bet you've walked in and your son, was still sleeping on other days and the reaction was different.
Absolutely. I mean, it happened this morning.
Yeah.
We're talking we're talking years later, and it happened again. But this morning it was just like, okay, just get up. We're going to go. I mean, and I will say what I before that, because that in that moment was just, I think it was just pivotal in my life. And before that, even though I was open to exploring our thoughts, but it was definitely from, let's say an outside in perspective. It was always about what's going on externally as to why I'm feeling how I'm feeling. And then even, prior to seeing this understanding, that's what I was doing, to others as well. And for years, I was like living in what I can only describe as a heaviness, because it just seemed to me that I needed everything on the outside to be okay or different in order for me to be happy and okay. If I just had more money, if I didn't have this issue, if my kids would just obey, if they would just put the dishes away, if they would keep their rooms clean, And seriously, that's just it was like for years. Like if you saw me and my family, you probably couldn't tell. But for me, I was so unhappy for years. And it just felt like this weight, like a plank was laying on me, and I could never shake it no matter what I did. I yelled, screamed, nothing happened. Nothing would change it. I mean, it affected my relationship with my kids and my husband. My kids, I could see it in their eyes. It's just like, you know, we weren't, it was just not, good relationships. And then once I backed off from trying to fix them, trying to correct them so that I could be happy, and started living from this understanding that, just like you said, we don't live at the mercy of our circumstances, things started to shift. Our relationships improved. Now, I mean, I enjoy the time with them more than I did before. And definitely my work as an education, I never set out to be a teacher. Like, you know, I don't know why. I think I did kind of avoid it. But then once I became a coach, I had an interest in seeing if I can do coaching in an education setting.
Mm.
So then I decided, okay, well, let me get some experience. So that led me to, just becoming a teacher assistant, a substitute teacher at first, and just kind of working my way up. And thankfully, I had at least a basic beginning understanding of the inside out nature of life when I started. And I think that helped me out so much
Yeah.
once I entered into the classroom.
So when you say your happiness isn't dependent on your kid's behavior or your husband behaving or acting, what is it? How did that, not how did it shift, but where does your happiness come from then?
Well, the way that it looks to me, and I'm seeing more, it's definitely already within us. It's an inside thing. I don't think it's like a destination or something that we have to go to achieve. It's always there. And the only thing that covers it up is our own thinking. At least that's how I see it now.
Yeah. And I would imagine, having known you for a few years now and most recently participating in that program, I know that you've been sharing some of these insights with your community, people in your life, with your school. But I'm curious what you've noticed, even within your role and your relationships or within the school, as people start to see what you're pointing to, or you yourself. How is that making a difference in those environments?
Well, I hope it is. I mean, I just do it. I live it, I think, as much as I can for my own life. And I think when we all do that, it affects, it just like multiplies. So I think it shows up in the way that I behave and I respond and how I relate to my students. I think definitely it's helped me see that one of the most important parts of being an educator is the relationship with the students. And just having that's the foundational piece. And so having an understanding that our experiences create from inside out has helped me to have better relationships. I don't take not taking things as personally, because let's
Mhm.
be on, kids are kids. They're
Yeah.
going to behave because that's just what kids, they're going to misbehave or behave how they do, rather. I don't want to necessarily label it, but just because that's just what they do as kids. And I think um, I take things a lot less personally now, and I seek to just connect with them. And then through that connection, I'm able to point them in the direction of the inside out nature of life, because they're not seeing it, for themselves. But sometimes they do. And that's the other thing I've learned. We all see it at times. We all do. So yeah, that. And I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, you are, and I wanna pull out a little more.
Yeah.
The, the connecting with them and the relationship, can you say a little bit more about how that shows up? So, you're not taking things personally, but it sounds like you're also, um, kind of giving them a little bit more grace and wonder, I might be connecting a dot that you wouldn't connect, but I know that when we begin to see that, in a more agitated, fed up, or lower mood, the quality of our own thinking and behavior, can diminish. And so you start to see where, when a child acts out or a partner, there's a way we can look at it through the lens of, oh, they're seeing something now from their own internal space. Their own landscape is kind of at play in how they're responding right here. And I'm curious, Davida, if how that supports or helps you or comes to play in what you're talking about.
You know what? You connected the dots perfectly. Yeah, it's definitely more grace. I'm able to now focus on the connection piece and going through there. I will say this, it's not a perfect thing. I have my moments where I don't see it and I get lost in my thinking all of the time. So I'm just so grateful for the times that I do see it and that it just, I'm able to pop out of my thinking a lot quicker than I was before. So make sure that that's clear. But yeah, definitely more grace and more compassion, willing to have more conversations with them and to understand how they're seeing things and to take that into consideration and to recognize that they're only acting out of their own thinking in the moment, out of their own perspective and the meaning that they're making of things. Yeah. So I remember one time when I first got into education too, like well, maybe a couple years in, I was a substitute one day, and the teachers had all warned me about this student and about how they can get very emotional or have outbursts. And so I was like, okay, we'll just call him Steven. And so yeah, I was subbing in Steven's class one day, and the lead teacher had passed out an assignment, and then sure enough, Steven just started crying. He just got upset, and he was really it was hard for the teacher to deal with it in the moment. So I just asked, I was like, hey, can I take him outside? And the teacher was like, sure. So I asked Steven to come with me, and he was like, yeah. So we went outside, and thankfully it was a nice sunny day in Florida. And we were able to just sit outside, and I just let him have his moment. And he was crying. And I just gently asked, I was like, what's going on? What's that about? And then he says, I, I can't get this because I'm stupid. And so I was like, okay, all right. And so, of course, me inside, I'm realizing, okay, that's just how he's looking at himself. And so I ask, okay, well, how do you know that you're stupid? And he just stopped and he looked at me like he was really pondering this. And then all of a sudden, the tears just stopped. He was happy and he starts talking about something else. I can't remember, something that happened or something fun. And then I was like, okay. So we go back in, and then he's calm and he finishes his work. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, and it's such a good example of an internal shift and sometimes just a reflective question or, getting people out of the current loop of where their mind is, including ourselves. And all of a sudden, naturally, we just have different thinking,
Listen,
you know?
yes, I do that to myself every day. Like one of the questions I ask myself all the time is, okay, so where do I think my feeling is coming from? And if my answer is anything other than thought in the moment, then I know that I'm not thinking clearly.
Yeah.
And that's my sign that I need to just take a moment for myself, or just really just tap inside and say, okay, what is it that I need right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I remember when I was first learning about Sydney Banks and his teachings, and I was listening to one of his tapes, and he said at the bottom of every disturbed mind is an insecure thought. And at first I was like, no, that's not true. I mean, it's like I don't feel insecure everywhere, and then, but I couldn't quit. Like that phrase wouldn't leave me as much as my mind was trying to dismiss it. And then I realized it's true. Like every internal upset or mind looping really at its core is a belief in some kind of insecure thought, like either the future's scary or what just happened shouldn't have gone down, or I'm not living up the way I think I should, or they aren't, or something's at risk. And it was just it's why I love your question. It was a really simple anchor for me to just go, oh yeah, okay, I'm just in a disturbed internal state. Let that pass. Like they all pass. Every experience, every mood, everything shifts. It's not stagnant. It's not fixed. And then in a different quality of mind, we naturally have more perspective.
Yeah, yeah. I so agree with that. And that's really what it is. It's fear. It's always a fear of, at least for me, I'll just say that, a fear of I'm not okay. Something's bad, is about to happen, or everything's not going to work out. And like, how do we know?
Yeah.
How do I know that it's not going to work out? And sometimes it does feel a little scary to like let myself just kind of go to that place where it's like, okay, it can work out. Like, I think because we're not used to that as a society. We're just so used to, focusing on how we feel and kind of, uh, you know, I don't know, I guess assuming the worst, maybe. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, which makes complete sense if
Yeah.
that's, the thinking that we're having and how we've been taught. But seriously, there's something about looking at life supporting us rather than looking at it like it's setting us up to fail.
Yeah, say more about that. What do you mean by that, and how is that revealing itself in your own life?
Well, to me, it's definitely spiritual. Now, I'm growing with looking at business and spirituality together. Sometimes it does feel uncomfortable because people have their own understanding of what spirit means and then God, and we all relate to it differently. But for me, I do believe that there is a higher power to life, and I relate to it as God. But and the way that I see it is that we are a part of God. We're just all parts of one whole, and that this power is what is behind all of life, the energy and intelligence that's running the show. Like, one of my favorite metaphors is, I love to look at it as like the seasons changing. Like right now, we're about to go into fall from summer, right? And we're not out there doing it. We don't have to flip a switch. It just naturally happens, right? I'm driving the other day and I'm noticing, oh, the leaves are falling already. They're already starting to turn colors, right? On their own. And that same power is who we are. And so I'm seeing that if I look towards that more, right? And just let that guide, it just makes things a lot easier. Like, yeah, it's like I can just take my hands off. Meaning for me, that means not ruminating on my fears. Like, it's okay to have them, but I don't have to stay there with them and dwell on them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we notice we're, kind of lost in thought, or we're in imagination about potential outcomes, or worry, about life, it's such a gift when we realize if we're noticing it, we already have some perspective from it. Like, and that perspective is everything because it shows us that we're experiencing thought. We aren't experiencing truth. And we know that because a different thought could come in and our experience would be different.
Yeah. All the time. All the
Yeah.
time. It happens. I see it so clearly. Something happened recently, and I can't remember what it was, but there's just been so many times where I'll see things one way, and then when I talk to someone else and they're like, "Oh, well, they saw it completely different." But yeah, we were both dealing with the same thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that's such a good example because having been raised by a single mother with 6 brothers and sisters, when we're all reminiscing about the past, everyone has a different perspective of it. The events might be the same, but even sometimes those vary. And to just really appreciate, like, oh, yeah, that's because of what you started this conversation with. We're all living in the world that our minds are creating. We're all looking at life and each other and circumstances through what's happening inside of ourselves. And so, this idea, I'd like to come back to the trusting life. And what I also heard you saying there was like trusting that this kind of nature energy behind all life is also carrying us, like it's not all on us. And I'm wondering if there's something in particular that you can share around that, Davida, or something that's helped you see that more clearly.
Yeah, I think, well, I grew up in the church, as they say. So, but at the same time, our parents' religion is not our own. I had to come to it for myself, for sure. So, being open to a higher power, but but I didn't really get it, I think, until I started studying the inside out nature of life. And now it just hits me so much more deeply than it did before. Because, yeah, it always seemed like that I had a God to please, that I had a God that I had to make happy. And I don't see it that way anymore at all. It's just like, yeah, to me, it's like, okay, well, why wouldn't God want the best for us if we're all part of a whole,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
energy is running through us.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't? So, yeah, I just do remember that day. It just came to me. It was like the metaphor that came was like a prism. You know, like how a prism and light comes through, and then it cut the white light comes through, and you see all these colors, like the whole parts of a whole. I don't know why. For me, that just hit me like so differently one day. Like, because one of those things that you hear so much, people say like God's got your back, right? But at first, it always was like, still okay. Well, I have to do something in order for God to have my back. But now, no, I don't. It doesn't look like that anymore. It's like, yeah,
You
why
don't have
wouldn't
to
God have my
earn it.
back? Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the word. You don't have to own it, earn it. It's like, why?
Yeah.
If we're, yeah. So it's completely different. But it's like I was going to say trust, but I think it's more of a testing. Not like I'm a test to see if it's real per se, but more of a letting go and maybe experimenting is the better word, or being open to it and willing. So, okay, so if I recognize that I'm spinning in my thoughts right now, I might intentionally be like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stop. I'm going to feel it, but I know I don't have to let that dictate what I do next. And I can just, pause and just wait and see and let it, what happens, see what happens. And lo and behold, it works out.
That's great. Yeah.
I think that willingness is for me is it's key. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like that illusion where it looks like if I control the variables enough, if I control my behavior enough, it'll guarantee a certain outcome. And I think that's a trick of the mind, right?
I tried
And
that for years. It
I
does
know,
not work. It made
I
it
know.
worse. It made
Yeah.
it so much worse. And when I was finally able to like let go and just, okay, it is what it is. It's just, things just changed. I saw things differently. Like I said, like my relationships improved with my kids and my husband. It doesn't mean that the situation might have changed, but that saying like nothing changed, but everything changed. It's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious in the way in your work right now or in life, is there a place you feel like you're at a growth edge and something's being
Yeah.
asked of you?
Yeah. You know what? That actually, okay. So, the example I can think of that just relates to what we were just talking about. So, like, right now, I'm teaching in pre K. So, 4 and 5 year olds. 4 and 5 year olds. Love them. They are the best. I love, they are so funny. But, we get a lot of, well, they said this about me, or they won't let me play. And they are upset. I mean, it's like, that's a big deal to them. And I think before this understanding, I would have jumped in and been like, okay, well, I would have solved it for them or tried to do it. But now I'll take a step back. I'm like, and I'll explore it with them. Right? Okay, all right, well, what do you think this is? Or asking some kind of reflective question. I think that's a big difference for me because I know that they have the same power within them, even at 4 and 5. They do. We're all born with it. And so being aware of that helps me to honor that in them. And I'm hoping then that they'll see it for themselves too. And then they
Yeah.
do. Yeah. Because like, oh, so and so said, I don't know, I'm not nice, whatever they say. And so I'm like, okay, well, what do you think about yourself? And they'll think about it. Like, do you think that's true? No. Well, do you have to pay attention to what these? No. All right, go have fun. And then they just go and they have fun. Or sometimes, we don't have to say anything. I remember like, I'll just observe them. They'll be by themselves. So and so won't play with me. And I'll just watch. And a few minutes later, another thought comes in because then they're off having fun playing with somebody else. So I don't even have to do anything. I don't have to interject. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you're there's such a great model of, they can go from a temper tantrum to giggling to vice versa. They can, I always think it's kind of funny. It's like one of the reasons I think kids can go from upset to like completely forgetting about it is because they're not analyzing their behavior. They aren't going, now, why did I get upset? Like in the moment they're in it, they're in it. But then the next moment when they're not in it, they are not in it. And it's
Yeah.
such a great model of how it works unless we grab it and ruminate and validate it
Yeah.
and look at it more. So I think kids
Yeah.
are such a great example.
And we, even as adults, we still do it too. That's why,
Yeah.
why they say sleep on it, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. That's a great example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I I think that piece around really trusting that your kids or people in your life, your team, your employees have that innate well-being inside of them. And that fact that you see that keeps you from trying to intervene on just a disturbed mind, because a mind will shift. I think that's such a cool piece that you're bringing forward. And I remember a story of a colleague of mine who was sharing that her and her son were making cookies one day after school. And as they're making the cookies, the little boy starts to share about how these older kids were at the playground either, I think the day before, I don't think it was the same day, kicking rocks in his face. And he's telling the story that then he decided to take his sweatshirt and turn it around so that the hoodie was covering his face. And then, he's kind of telling the story, and my friend starts to get upset, and she's like, Who? Who were these kids? What were they doing? And then she's thinking, where was the teacher? Why wasn't anyone intervening? Like, she started to get really upset. But because she had been looking at exactly what you're saying. Wait a minute, like, is there anything to even rescue here? Like, or to resolve? She just took a step back and she looked, and he was fine. It wasn't damaging his self-esteem, which is what
Right.
her mind went to. It wasn't, he had no residue about it. He was telling it. And then she realized, like, oh, yeah, this is where I could insert and start to lock in, some ideas here. And, she was able to not do that. But also, in not doing that, she saw how clever he was. Like, in a 5-year-old's little mind, they aren't thinking, oh, this is inappropriate. They're thinking, I don't like this. And so he put this hoodie on to protect his face. And when you look at it that way, you're like, how clever.
Yeah.
And that's his wisdom in that little body, right? That little mind helping him navigate that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. We all have wisdom. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I definitely am doing more of, I think, at work. I'm being more intentional of looking for that in others versus judging them on their behaviors, looking for that wisdom inside because it only works one way for all of us. And reminding myself that, okay, they're just doing whatever they're doing because of the thinking that they're having in the moment, you know? I had a really hard time and in my current school up a couple of years ago, like about I guess 2 years after I started. At first, I have two roles right now, but when I just had the one role as associate teacher, it got a little tough. It got a little tough because I felt like the role wasn't included or appreciated, and it got to the point that I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna quit, right? Because I was that unhappy. And it was like a couple weeks into this new school year, just not being included as a part of the team and doing things, I think because of, of having being in this role. And then I just remember that one morning just thinking about it. I just did not want to go. It was hard. I was like, I cannot go. And seriously, that question came to mind. Like, Davida, okay, well, where do you think your feelings are coming from? And it was like, oh my gosh, this whole time for weeks, I thought that how how I was feeling was coming from how they were treating me or how they were acting and or what was not happening or what I wanted to happen and didn't happen. And then I remembered also, okay, they're just the people on my team are just acting because of how they're thinking. It has nothing to do with me. And was able to have more grace or compassion. And then all of a sudden, it literally like switched. And I was like, I could not wait to get to school because it was like, it reminded me, then I had that space to realize, okay, why am I even in the school? Like, what's the relationship with the kids? So I started focusing on that and relating to the kids. And then I saw, oh my gosh, you know what? There's a spot in the hallway in the morning that probably needs an adult to supervise it because the kids are coming in and they're just congregating and they shouldn't be. So I started going there. Wisdom said, okay, go there in the mornings. And sure enough, then the kids would come in. I started making more relationships with the kids, with more students who are still there. It just things just shifted when I was willing to look at it differently than I was before. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And it sounds so simple, but it really is. impactful when we realize, oh, wait, I'm leaning into this story or this idea,
Yeah.
and it's creating my suffering, not them. And
Yeah.
then when we lose the grip of thought, we just naturally see, again, coming back to what we've said, we naturally see with more perspective. And then those ideas, those nudges come in, hey, try this. But prior to that, when we're just locked into what we think is true,
Hmm.
or to a perception, it's hard for any of that to even be noticed. And I think it's, the other piece I think your story reminds me is, and I see this often in working in teams and with partnerships and all of that, that the assignment of ill intent, like when we feel slighted, and then the assumption that it's the person, it's the behavior, and the mind will start to make up reasons and fill in all these blanks. And what I love about your story is that question of where is your feeling really coming from?
Yeah.
Kind of, it took you to truth, and in truth, it automatically shifted.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it again, it was like a load lifted. And it couldn't have come at a better time because I got another role at the end towards the end of, well, second half of the school year, and where now I interact with students from the whole division. And so just continuing to develop those relationships. And that has just been just such an honor and a privilege. And you know what? I do want to say that I think what I'm also seeing is, seeing how life works on inside out is helpful, but it's also not an excuse for negative behavior, right? So I needed to acknowledge or address the issues that was going on with my team. But getting that insight that how I was feeling wasn't coming from their behavior helped because then I was able to approach the situation from clarity versus approaching it from the misunderstanding. And I probably would have handled it a lot worse.
Yeah.
So
Brilliant.
so the understanding one helped me to live in my innate freedom and happiness versus going through it with all this unnecessary struggling and stress, right? And then so seeing it more clearly helped me to handle the situation, I think, a lot better than I would have coming from the standpoint of, well, you're not including me, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. That wouldn't have helped anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm really glad you brought that forward, that we're not saying you're making everything up. What we're saying is your experience of what's happening is being
Yeah.
shaped via thought in the moment. But to your point, which you so beautifully articulated, is how do I want to address the situation? And if I can do it from a more neutral, present,
Yeah.
internal space, I'll bring more clarity, more wisdom, and I'll say the thing that needs to be said in a way that it'll hopefully get heard. Versus, you're right, when we step into conversation, agitated, upset, blaming, people
Mhm.
often can't take it in.
No, no, they can't. And yeah, and it's not as helpful.
Yeah,
But yeah, and then also, we don't have, and it's also not about just ignoring what's going on too. Yeah, things have to be addressed. It's just, I think the manner in which you do it is important
yeah,
too, right? Yeah.
absolutely. Well, Davida, I have loved this conversation, and I just want to give you an opportunity before we end. Is there anything else that's present for you that you'd like to share?
Wow. Well, one, I definitely just want to say thank you for having me. I always love talking to you.
Same.
So any opportunity I have to chat with you is great. If I could leave with everybody with one thing, what would it be? Just the reminder that you're okay. That no matter what situation or circumstance you might come against, you're okay. Your okayness inside, your well being is safe. And it's like you said earlier, it's not at the mercy of the situations that we face. And if you just step back and let yourself just look towards the energy that's flowing through you and look at how your experience is being shaped through thought and let that guide you.
Beautiful. I think that's a perfect place to end our conversation. Thank you so much, Davida. So grateful. As always, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean a lot to us if you could take a moment to first subscribe and follow wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Hitting the follow button means you'll never miss a show. All you have to do is hit the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner or click on follow. While you're there, if you like what you're hearing, we'd appreciate you taking a moment to give us a shout out and review. Most importantly, however, if you know anyone that would benefit from this episode, please pass it along. And finally, if you'd like to learn more about my work, Interverse Academy, or upcoming events, you can check out my website at barbarapatterson.com. You'll find some great resources, classes, and videos, and a lot more. Thank you again for being here. See you next time.